Alright, starting off, what are your A, B, and C values for this one?
1, 6, and 10.
1, 6, and 10. So then we're going to use those values and put them into your formula. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c. All over 2a. Virginia, there's extra ones in this paper. Wait, what? Okay, and you get it. So then we can start to simplify this. Remember that you can put the part that's underneath the square root without the actual square root, just the number, in your calculator and figure out what that is. Negative 4. Can we take the square root of a negative number? No. No. We're going to do like 5 other problems. Okay. So since we cannot take the square root of a negative number, there's nothing else for us to do. This is going to be no solution. If you were to try, like maybe you remember that 4 is a perfect square and you put the square root of negative 4 in, you would get non-real answers. So that would tell you this has no solutions. So that means this would not cross your x-axis at all.
Preston, you with me? I got a question for you for $1 million. Ready?
Oh my God! Give me the question. I need it now. I'm broke currently.
$1 million. You ready? So if you have a negative number under the square root sign,
How come we can't
how
just
much
put
more work do you have?
like how we did up here for number 1? We can, if we can't simplify, we can just do that.
So, because we can't take the square root of a negative number, there's nothing we can do here. If this was just 4, then we could do
we could
something.
just do the same thing that we did up here.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, ready.
Did we have other questions on number 5? Before we move on.
No, Miss Thorpe. Miss Thorpe, can we not do work today? I have my SOL today. I'm just not gonna.
I'm sorry.
How long did it take you to do that? Me, it took me like an hour or something.
Okay, let's refocus.
I failed them.
This class is playtime.
What are your A, B, and C values for number 7? So A should be negative 1. B7, C is negative 3. We're on the back on number 7. We're not doing 6. Sorry. Right, so then we can use those values to put in our formula. If you want to rewrite your formula up here so you're not flipping back and forth, you can do that. I don't really have space for that, but let's see. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over. Okay. So we would put these numbers into our formula. Notice that our A is different, so be mindful of that when you put that in. We have negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a, which is now negative 1, not this one, times c, all over 2 times a, which is now negative 1. And then we can start to simplify.
All right, Josh, you ready for another question?
Give it to me.
If you square a negative number,
Okay.
you ready?
Okay.
Square a negative number, how often can it be negative, the answer?
How often?
Can it be negative? If you square a negative, like negative 7 squared, if you square any negative number, how often can it turn out to be negative?
Only once.
When
For what?
can it be negative?
When can it be negative? He's wrong. I have no clue.
What do you say?
No.
Never.
No way.
Never.
No way.
Square negative numbers are always positive. Right?
Use
Negative
parentheses.
numbers.
Oh yeah, because
Square
we did that
negative
last time.
number, it's
She said
always
that.
positive.
If you use parentheses. If you don't use parentheses, you get negative numbers.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start simplifying this. Negative 7 plus or minus. What is your discriminant number? The number underneath your radical.
I think that is right. I was supposed to have my answer key up there so I can be checking. Yes, it is.
37. Is 37 a perfect square?
No.
So then we are going to leave this as is, but put it in our solution set. Negative 7 minus the square root of 37 over negative 2, and negative 7 plus the square root of 37 over negative 2.
So when you're trying to do the square root of a negative number, you're going to put no solution, but if it's positive number, you're going to put the solution.
Yes, so negative, no solution. If it's positive and it's not a perfect square, you would just write it like this. Positive and it's a perfect square, you would keep simplifying.
Other questions on 7?
We are going to skip down to number 11. What are your A, B, and C values? 2 is your A value. Your B value? 5. And C?
4.
4.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's use these values and put them in our formula. Notice that A is not always 1, so don't assume it to always be 1.
Will it be?
So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a, which is now 2, times c, all over 2 times your a value, which is also 2. When you start to simplify, what would your discriminant number be? Negative 7. And what would we do from there?
That much more work, Caleb.
This would be no solution. There's nothing else for us to do.
Oh. What is wrong? Yes, you said that. Bro, bro, you're a different kid. You're different, bro. It's just something about
Questions on 11. Let's do number 13. For number 13, what are your A, B, and C values? 2 is A. Negative 8 is which value? C. C. Your B value doesn't exist here. That would be 0. So anytime you don't have a term, put in 0. And then we can put these numbers into our formula.
We don't have to find the B.
No, we don't. Because it's not given, so we don't have to find it out. It's just automatically going to be 0. So x equals, I'm going to put negative 0 just because that's how the formula would be set up. Negative 0 plus or minus the square root of 0 squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2A. That's fine. Find your discriminant number. $64. Even though this is 0 on the outside, I'm going to leave that and keep using that. You'll see why here in a second. Is 64 a perfect square? Yes. What is the square root of 64? 8. You have 0 plus or minus 8 over 4. So then we could keep simplifying this to 2 separate fractions. 0 minus 8 over 4 and 0 plus 8 over 4. Because we kept those zeros, now we know that we're going to have a negative and a positive. So this would give us negative 8 over 4 and 8 over 4. And then we could simplify them again. So that'll be 2 and negative 2. Yes. Yes. Sometimes these simplified answers will give you whole numbers. Sometimes they'll give you fractions. Leave them as fractions. Don't put the decimal unless they're nice fractions or nice decimals. Questions on 13? Let's do 14, and then we're going to start 16, but that'll be one that you finish. And then we'll do one other thing that I've talked to you about. For 14, we can't start this as is. We have to move the 12x over. We're going to subtract this over to the left, so it's all on the same side. So our equation would then be 4x squared minus 12x plus 9 equals 0. Now we can list out our A, B, and C values, which are what?
4 and 12 and 9.
4
Okay,
and
it's 4.
12 and 9. And then we can start putting those values into our formulas. X equals negative B plus 1 minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2A. Find your discriminant number.
Wouldn't that be 0?
It would be 0.
Yeah, but what is up with you, bro? What? Did she add?
We multiply 2 and 4.
You trying to sample beats or something?
0. Guys,
I got 0.
it is 0. This part is what you're talking about? For number 3. Oh, how we got 8 here?
Yes.
I took the square root of 64. So after we took the square root of 64, we got 8. Then we could break this into 2 separate things, the minus and the plus. And then we just simplified. 0 minus 8 and 0 plus 8, and then simplified again.
So wouldn't it now be -12?
Yeah, hold on 1 second. What is the square root of 0? 0. So in this case, when we had the 0 outside and we did plus or minus, we kept the 0 because we could see it change from a negative to a positive. Adding or subtracting 0 won't change anything to this, so we don't need to keep the 0 in this one. So this is just going to be 12 over 8, which can be simplified. What?
1.5.
That would be the decimal.
12.
What would the fraction be? Put this in as a fraction.
Oh.
Yeah. So 1.5 would be the decimal, and you could put this as a decimal, because it's a nice decimal fraction, whatever.
So we have
But-
to put on the fractions?
I would say for everything else, like if it ends in a 3, a 7, something like that, leave it as a fraction. If it ends in like over 2, you can put it as a decimal, and that'd be okay.
Will we ever have that on the test?
This, we just put all the numbers into that. You may have fractions. They should be nice fractions. I'm not a fan of them. So once we have the A, B, and C, we're just putting it into that formula we get that we get on. For 16, we're going to start this, but not finish it. You guys will finish it later when you have time to practice. You have things on both sides. You need to get them all on the same side. It does not matter how you do that. If you want everything moved to the right because you already have an x squared, an x, and the constant over there, that's fine. I personally like moving things to the left just to keep my first term positive, but it doesn't matter. So you can either move everything to the left or move everything to the right. I'm going to move everything to the left. So I'm going to subtract my x squared, add my 2x, and subtract my 15 over here somewhere. And then I would combine my like terms. 3x squared minus x squared would give me 2x squared. 7x plus 2x would be plus 9x. And then I have my minus 15. Again, it does not matter how you do that. And then you would find your A, B, and C and put it in the formula and continue.
Makes sense.
Do you have any questions on any of these? Overall, how did we feel about quadratic formula in general? Thumbs up for good, sideways for okay, down for not so good. Okay. It does take some practice, so you guys will have to practice this in order to get better at it. Okay. You will have time to practice, but I want to switch gears for 1 second. Look at the review that was on your desk and find the page where it's graphing, but the back of that page. Okay, so this would go back to the second lesson, second objective when we were graphing. I'm just going to show you this really fast. So we talked about how to find the axis of symmetry and how to find the vertex and then how to get your table and all of those things. When it's written in the form y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. We did not talk about how would we do that if it was in a different format. It looks complex, but it's not that bad. When it's like this is written in vertex form. That means we should be able to look at this and find the vertex without really doing any work. A little bit of work, not a whole lot. So I'm going to rewrite this above one of these so you see the letters that correspond to this. Minus h. So y equals a, and then in parentheses, x minus h squared plus k. Could be minus k, it doesn't matter. When we were talking about finding solutions and putting it in factor form, we took whatever it was and we changed the sign. If it was like x equals 2, we made it x minus 2 in the factor form. This kind of goes with that. Whatever is on the inside, we flip the sign for that. So if this is -1, I also skipped this up. Our vertex here is hk. So when we look at this format, we look at whatever this number is, but we're going to take the opposite. So instead of -1, our h or our vertex form would be just 1. And then whatever is on the outside, we just put that. We don't change that. We don't do anything to it. So from this, I can say that this would be like my x value, and this would be like my y value. It's just written in hk because that's the format of it. I don't know why. But now instead of finding your axis of symmetry and finding your vertex, you're given that. And you can start there and then do your table. So the rest of everything else is the same. You would still put this in your calculator, find your table around this vertex. Yeah.
How do you do this without using a calculator? Like
You would have to put in all of your values. So if you put this in the middle and fill in your x's, you have to put each one of these numbers into this formula or into whatever quadratic equation you have and solve for y individually 5 times. Oh. You guys will just be putting it in the calculator, not doing it algebraically. You meant putting it in the calculator? Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. So the same when you put things in the calculator, go into your y equals. This is not up here. and you would just type it in exactly as is. Use your parentheses. So parentheses x minus 1. Outside of those parentheses, hit square, and then minus 1. And then you would still go to your table the same way, second graph, and you would be looking around 1, negative 1. So that part has not changed. Just how we find the vertex is, if you're given something that looks like that. Second graph. So I just want to have you practice. We're going to go through some of these so that you can practice finding the vertex with me. Then you'll have time to do it on your own. So I'm not going to actually go through and graph it. Just find the vertex. Because the graphing part we've practiced before. For number 8, we're looking for the vertex. What would your h or your x value be? Positive 4. And your k or your y value? 1. That would be the point you put in the middle of your table, or that you're finding points around. We're going to do another one. Let's look at number 10. What would your x or your h value be? Negative 3. And your y or your k value? Positive 4. That would be the number or the order pair you put in the middle of your table. Do which part?
Well, 4 you have to get inside the parentheses, right?
4 is on the outside, so whatever that is, that would be your y value. Whatever this number is, you're going to take that and change it, make it the opposite. So you should be able to look at this and find the vertex to help you graph without actually doing the work to find the vertex. Does that make sense?
What if I wanted to?
I would advise you not to. Just for this one, just because I haven't shown you how to do all of that, and that's something more advanced that we're not going to get into. Okay. So, things I want you to practice. On this page of the review, I want you practicing finding the vertex so that you can find your table and graph on this page in the review. I also want you to go back on your quadratic formula notes. Do as many of those as you feel like you need. You want to do one that has a 0, one that has a perfect square root, one that doesn't, and then maybe you feel good about it. Do that and then practice something else. The review you have is also for everything that's going to be on the test. Bless you. The second page of the review is objectives 2 and 3. It just doesn't say that. So notice it says sketch the graph and write the solutions. That's both of those objectives, so make sure you're doing both of those things. Does anyone have any questions on what we're doing for the rest of class?
Caleb, are you ready for your $1 million question? Of course. All right, then